Now, what are the stressors in our daily lives? The stressors for Sally's rates included electric shock and exposure to cold. Although these are probably not on your top 10 list of most common stressors, the stress that you experience in your everyday life can also be taxing. Now, Thomas Holmes and Richard Rahe developed a measure of some everyday life events that might lead to stress, and you can assess your own likely stress level by completing the measure. Now, like the death of a spouse, score is 100. Divorce, 73. Marital separation from Nate, 65. Detention in jail and other institutions, 63. Death of a close family member, 63. Major personal injury or illness, 53. Marriage, 50. Fired from work, 47. Marital reconciliation, 45. Retirement, 45. Major change in health or behavior of a family member, 44. Pregnancy, 40. Sexual difficulties, 39. Gaining a new family member through birth, adoption, Ulster moving, 39. Major business readjustment, 39. Major change in financial statement, 38. Death of a close friend, 37. Change to different line of work, 36. Major line in the number of arguments with spouse, 35. Taking out on a mortgage or loan for a major purchase, 31. Foreclosure on a mortgage or loan, 30. Major changes in responsibility at work, 29. Son or daughter leaving home, 29. Trouble with in-laws, 29. Outstanding personal achievement, 28. Spouse beginning or ceasing to work outside the home, 26. Beginning or ceasing formal schooling, 26. Major changes in living conditions, 25. Revision of personal habits, dress, manner, and associations is 24. Trouble with boss, 23. Major change in working hours or conditions, 20. Change in residence, 20. Change to a new school, 20. Major change in usual type or amount of recreation, 19. Major change in church activities, 19. Major changes in social activities, 18. Taking out on a mortgage or loan for a lesser purchase, 17. Major changes in sleeping habits, 16. Major changes in number of family get-togethers, 15. Major changes in eating habits, 13. Vacation, 13. Christmas season, 12. Minor violations of the law like traffic tickets, 11. So this was a great scale to learn our stress levels. We can calculate with this table. Now, what are the responses to stress? Not all people experience or respond to stress in the same way, and these differences can be important. The cardiologist Meyer Friedman and R.H. Rosenman were among the first to study the link between the stress and heart disease. In their research, they noticed that even though the partners in married couples often had similar lifestyles, diet, and exercise patterns, the husbands nevertheless generally had more heart disease than the wives did. As they tried to explain the difference, they focused on the personality characteristics of the partner, finding that the husbands were more likely than the wives to respond to stressors with negative emotions and hostility. Now, how do we manage this stress? After all, we know that stress is a major problem and is happening with every second person around us, and each of us are triggered with this stress in our everyday lives. So no matter how healthy and happy we are in our everyday lives, there are going on to be times when we experience stress. But we do not need to throw up on our hands and despair when things go wrong. Rather, we can use personal and social resources to help us. Now, perhaps the most common approach to dealing with negative affect is to attempt suppress, avoid, or deny it. You probably know people who seem to be stressed, depressed, or anxious, but they cannot or will not see it in themselves. Perhaps you tried to talk to them about it to get them open up to you, but they were rebuffed. They seemed to act as if there was no problems at all, simply moving on with life without admitting or even trying to deal with the negative feelings. Or moving on with the life without admitting or even trying to deal. Or perhaps you have taken a similar approach yourself. Have you ever tried an important test to study for an important job interview coming up, and rather than planning and preparing for it, you simply try to put it off in your mind entirely? Research has found that ignoring stress is not a good approach for coping with it. For one, ignoring our problems does not make them go away. If we are experiencing so much stress that we get sick, These events will be detrimental in our life because if we do not or cannot admit that they are occurring, suppressing and negative emotions is also not a very good option, at least in the long run, because it tends to fail. For one, if we know that we have big exam coming up, we have to focus on the exam itself to suppress it. We can't really suppress or deny our thoughts because we actually have to recall and face the event to make the attempt to not think about it. Doing so takes efforts and we get tired when we try to do it. Furthermore, we may continually worry that our attempts to suppress will fail. Suppressing our emotions might work out for a short while, but then we run out of energy. The negative emotions may shoot back up in consciousness, causing us to re experience the negative feelings that we had been trying to avoid. Daniel Wegpecker and his colleagues directly tested whether people would be able to effectively suppress a simple thought. He asked them to not think about a white bear for 5 minutes, but to ring a bell in case they did. However, participants were unable to suppress the thought as they instructed. The white bear kept popping in their mind even when the participants were instructed to avoid thinking about it. You might have had this experience when you were dieting or trying to study rather than party. The chocolate bar in the kitchen cabinet and the fun time you were missing at the party kept going into mind, disrupting your work. Now, it is easier to respond to stress if we can interpret it in more positive ways. Now, the Kelsey et al. Found that some people interpret stress as a challenge, something that they feel that they can with effort deal with, whereas others see the same stress as a threat, something that is negative and fearful. People who viewed stress as a challenge had fewer psychological and physiological stress responses than those who viewed it as a threat. They were able to frame and react to stress in more positive ways. Now, what is emotion regulation? Emotional responses such as the stress reaction are useful in the warning us about potential danger and in mobilizing our response to it. So it is a good thing that we have them. However, we also need to learn how to control our emotions to prevent them from letting our behavior get out of control. The ability to successfully control our emotions is known as emotional regulation. Emotion regulation has some important positive outcomes. Consider, for instance, research by Walter Mischel and his colleagues. In their studies, they had 4 and 5-year-old children sit at a table in front of a yummy snack, such as chocolate chip cookie or a marshmallow. The children were told that they could eat the snack right away if they wanted to. However, they were also told if they could wait for a couple of minutes, they'll be able to have 2 snacks, both one in the front of them and another just like it. However, if they ate that one in the front, they would, before the time was up, they would not get a second. Michelle found that some children were able to override the impulse to seek immediate gratification to obtain a greater reward at later time. Other children, of course, were not. They did just ate the first snack right away. Furthermore, the inability to delay gratification seemed to occur in a spontaneous and emotional manner without much thought. The children who could not resist simply grabbed the cookie because it looked so yummy without being able to stop themselves. Now, emotion regulation is influenced by body chemicals, particularly the neurotransmitters serotonin. Preferences for small immediate rewards over large but later rewards that have been linked to low levels of serotonin in animals. So this was much about serotonin. We know how important it has become.